This is what I believe to be the truth. I'm totally open to the possibility that it was hallucination, or a trick of the eye, or anything else. Just looking for some ideas. For some background, I've had some experience seeing shadow people as a child, but in the past 10 to 12 years, I haven't really experienced anything other than a weird shape in my peripheral vision, or a weird feeling of being watched. Nothing too major. That was until the night of the 23rd of December. I couldn't really sleep that night because I'd been working a late shift, and I was still in a kind of energetic mood. Weirdly though, that afternoon, when I was sitting on my bed putting my shoes on, I could have sworn I felt something touch my foot from underneath the bed. This is a fear I've had my entire life, and one that is so common for me that I didn't really pass much in my head. I just kind of remember thinking, oh god, that's weird. Anyways, that night once I did finally get some sleep, I kept being awoken by scratching noises. That sounds a lot scarier than it is, because we always get mice in our attic at winter, so it really wasn't anything new or scary. However, the third or fourth time it woke me up. It startled me because it sounded different. This time it sounded like, I guess I could say it sounded like someone really lightly running their fingers along the wall. Not scratching it or anything. Just like someone really, really lightly running their fingers along the wall. I also noticed that my wardrobe door was open. In my culture, there's a lot of superstition surrounding specifically wardrobe doors being open, so I actually have a string holding it closed, which immediately made me think something spooky was afoot. But I was so tired that I was just happy to ignore it. Anyways, I turned on the light and of course there was nothing to be seen. So I got a drink and took a few breaths, and went back to sleep. I then awoke at 7, lying on the side facing the wall. For some reason I got this overwhelming urge to turn over, and before I knew it, I was already rolling over. Then I noticed that there was what looked like to be a shadow man. I'm not sure why, but I had the distinct sense that it was Mel, standing about 1 meter away from the side of my bed. I got the feeling that it was facing me, but particularly, it had no head. It wasn't like it had been decapitated or anything gruesome like that. It just had uninterrupted lines across from one shoulder across to the other. As well as that, I remember it not having any hands. Like its arms just ended in a sort of rounded point. I also immediately noticed that it was quite small. Maybe 5 feet tall, probably less. I'm 5'11", and I could tell it was a decent bit shorter than I. I did not feel threatened at all at the time. I just saw it, thought, oh wow, this is actually happening. And then I immediately thought, this isn't what I would imagine you would look like. For reference, as a child, I remember frequently seeing a huge shadow figure with a hat on pretty often. So in my mind, that's what shadow person was. Anyways, I then kind of snapped out of it and dove off for the light switch. This meant passing by the entity in order to reach the switch. It didn't move or run or anything. It just stood still. When I passed it though, I did notice a coldness in that area, and the air feeling thick or dense. That's the only words I could think of. As soon as the lights were on, it began to fade into like smoke, but there was still a clear outline of it for a few seconds. The best way I could describe it is like, you know when it's really hot outside and you see those heat waves rising off the road? Yes, well, it looked exactly like that wavy air, but in the shape of a shadow. I'm from Ireland, and assuming this was one of the sea, I asked it to leave in Irish. I then felt the newfound sense of dread momentarily lift, but when I sat back down on the bed to kind of process my thoughts, I felt a rush of cold air come towards me, and I did feel a sense of anger or annoyance. But I can't explain where or what it was coming from, almost as if the air was angry at me. Naturally, I decided that this was a battle I'm not willing to fight, and I left my room. As soon as I closed the door though, I noticed that my 2 pet ferrets were both wide awake, and had all their fur standing full on end. I brought them both into my room then, and they both immediately started hissing and puffing, with their fur up at something. I've never seen something like this in my life, the way they acted. so it really did freak me out. I've been hoping to just pass this off as some sort of hallucination, but their actions unfortunately made me feel quite justified in my fears. I was initially worried that it was the Fear Dorsch of Irish folklore, a shadow man of the sea, who acts as a warning of your death, but it didn't fit any of the descriptions of him from our mythology, which honestly was the best Christmas surprise ever. Fully thought that I was a goner there for a while. Anyways, if you made it this far, thank you, and please, let me know if you have any ideas as to what it was, if I handled it wrong, or what I should do in the future. Thank you, and happy holidays. This story takes place when I was about 9 years old, in a rural town in Oaxaca, Mexico. I was living there for a few months in my dad's hometown with my mom, dad, and my brother, who was 4 at the time. My dad was driving home from the city in Oaxaca. It's a long drive, so it was dark by the time he got back to our home. Allow me to set up the scene. Our pueblo only has paved roads in the commerce and municipal areas of the town. 1 light post every single corner, and you can see the galaxy if you look up. Some houses are just adobe houses with easy access to the property. Others have these huge metal gates that you have to unlock and swing open to gain access to the inside. My dad was driving and I was in the middle seat, my mother riding shotgun and my brother asleep in the back seat. So we pull up to the front of the house. My dad honked about 3 times trying to get either of my grandparents or the uncle that lives there to open the gate. No one comes for what feels like 5 minutes, until we all see my grandmother open the right gate, and then the left gate. It struck me as strange that the 4 dogs we had weren't with her, as they'd always go to the front gate when it was open, because, you know, dogs. When she opens the left gate, she goes behind the gate as it swings towards the wall, most likely to go to the outside that's located right behind the gate. My mother and I see this, and she tells my dad, "Go inside. I'll go out and wait for her, so I can help her walk her to her room." My dad pulls in and we walk to my room. My grandparents sleep in and say hi to my grandpa. Except when we walk in, we both see my grandma bundled up in the bed. Evidently, she had come down with a fever and illness out of nowhere. When we left, she was healthy as can be. Now she couldn't sit up on her own, let alone walk across the property and open a huge gate like she normally could. My dad asked, "How'd you get here so fast? Why didn't you wait for Mom?" My uncle fills us in. At the same time, my mom comes running and worried about where my grandma is. We all saw her open the gate. We all saw her go behind the gate. But here she is, bedridden since we left during the day. My dad and uncle grab the old rifles we had and run out to search the property. Someone opened those gates, or something. That night, none of the dogs left from my grandpa's doorstep, and my dad sat at our room, gun in hand, anticipating the return. The next day, my little brother was also sick with a fever and markings on his body, as if someone was grabbing him with a strong grip. He wouldn't stop crying, and I'd never seen him cry like that before. There was an audible agony to his wails. He was begging for help the only way he could. He would say, "No, no." It was terrifying. My dad contacts a curando neighbor to help us. He does a cleansing on my brother and grandma, and then walks the property chanting and clearing the bad air. He said that was suffocating our home. He told us to watch out for strangers and strangeness, as witchcraft is rampant where we lived. Till this day, my mom gets chills. My dad doesn't like talking about it, and my brother always gets lightheaded when we talk about it. I haven't been able to get the way my grandma opened the door out of my mind. It seemed almost unnatural, clunky even. I don't get how the doors opened with no one there. Mexico is a strange, mysterious place. My whole family, mom, dad, my older sister, older brother, myself, my younger sister, my younger brother, were all at my dad's coworker's house outside of town. Because we're all pretty young, my parents had us outside for most of the day. The family had this playground in their backyard that we're playing in, but the kids were grown adults out of the house, so it was a bit of a rundown. The playground had wooden stairs that led up, and there was a square walkway that went all the way around to the top, and in the center there was an enclosure that had windows all around it, and a door that locked from the outside. It was full of a bunch of seemingly random junk to us kids, but it was still interesting. At one point in the day, my older brother had locked me in it, and I flipped out because I'm extremely claustrophobic, even though this enclosure was full of windows. I only mention being locked in because it's important for the main part of this experience. Mind you, there was no house close by. The yard was fenced in, chain link fence, so you could see everything, and a single tree between the house and the playground. The yard was huge and bare, otherwise as far as I can remember. Well, my older brother and sister had gone inside after some time, so it was just me and my younger sister at the playground. My little brother was like a year old, so he had been inside with my parents the whole time. I was at the bottom of the stairs that led up to the enclosure, and my little sister was standing outside the enclosure by the door. She wanted to go in, but since my brother had locked me in previously, she looked over the railing at me and said, "Don't lock me in." I was going to say, "I won't," but some voice that sounded like a really loud whisper coming from all the way around beat me to it, and it said, "I won't." My sister's eyes got wide, freaked out, and ran inside crying. I quickly followed suit and ran away towards the house. I reached the only tree in the yard on the way back to the house, and turned around to see if anyone was there and yelled, "Who said that?" I still didn't see anyone, but the voice answered, "I did." It was the same voice, and it sounded like it was coming from all around me, like it was whispering into both my ears at the same time. I ran inside to find my whole family and the owner of the house sitting on the couch in the living room, and my little sister was hiding under the coffee table crying. My parents were initially mad at me for scaring her, but she kept telling them it wasn't me, and we both told them what happened. My parents insisted that everyone had been inside with them when it happened, and the owner of the house and my parents spent a large part of their day trying to figure out what happened. But ultimately, we never did. We never went near that playground again. My sister and I still bring it up from time to time. She doesn't like talking about it, but definitely still remembers it. It was one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced.
You know what they say.
Hey friends, thanks for checking out today's video. If you haven't yet, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe button to be notified when I drop a new video or whenever I stream. If you guys want some more behind the scenes action, make sure to follow me on my social medias. Links to these will be provided in my description, including my public Discord. Also, if you'd like to support me and the channel, please consider becoming a channel member or a Patreon, where $1 a month gets you early access to all my videos. With all that being said, I want to thank you again, and remember, keep it spooky.